Hi guys, and welcome back to Crafty Quilting Designs. I hope you're well and having a really great day. Well, Happy New Year to you, and this is the first time I've seen you in a while actually. I think all the videos I've put up so far, you haven't seen my face and I haven't seen your face, so there you go. Well, my Christmas was a bit quiet. I hope yours was much better than mine was. I didn't do much, to be honest. Well, I don't think you do much on Christmas Day anyway, but it was a very quiet one. It's my first Australian Christmas and it was summery, so yeah, that in itself was just confusing and different to experience. I mean, I'm used to winter Christmas, and I guess that's why I didn't have that Christmas feeling. But it was just an ordinary day, if I have to be honest. It wasn't anything. There was just no Christmas vibe for me, and I think Carl felt the same as well. And I love Christmas. I'm a Christmas girl. I love it. But I'm looking forward to my birthday. Birthdays, Carl and I, is in January. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. His is the 2nd, mine is the 9th. So there you go. So I'm looking forward to that. But anyway, let's move on to the quilt. I think I've given you a lot of information about my personal life there already. So it is a layer cake, and I have actually cut all of this myself. There is a kit available for you to buy if you would like to make the exact same quilt that I have made. Now the cake is called Cake Crumbs. You know I meant the quilt. All right, it's called Cake Crumbs, and you do cut the layer cake up, and in the kit all the cuts will be there for you. Literally all you've got to do is just start sewing if you buy the kit. All right, there's also going to be a pattern available, and that will be in the description box down below as well. Any questions you have, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I love answering your questions. I know some of you actually said I talk too much, but I don't know what else to say. You know, if I talk too much or I talk little, then most people don't understand what I'm saying, in the sense that it's not enough information. I mean, there's not much I can do about that. I do like explaining myself so that people understand what I'm saying. So hey, if you don't like it, just move me along. Just, you know, and you'll have to hear my mouth. Okay, what else can I say about the quilt? I think that's it really. Oh, there is a bonus project as well at the end, and I'll show you that. So there was leftover fabrics, and I made a little bonus project with that as well. So I didn't show you how to make it. It's quite easy. You can just chuck it all together once you see the layout of it. It's really simple, but the quilt is beautiful. You are going to love it. All right, for those of you who don't know, there's other quilt patterns available on my site, description box down below as well. You'll see the link, and you can buy any other patterns that you so wish to. Moving forward though, I will be moving on with doing kits for the quilts. So if you choose to, that you want to use the exact same print, by all means you can check it out, and it will be the whole quilt top that you can actually buy. All right, as I said. So I guess that's it, guys. So enjoy the tutorial. Let me know what you think. For those of you who are new here, welcome, and for those of you who are always hanging with me, thank you so much for coming back, and welcome back as well. It's really nice seeing you. I want to start like a premiere squad and premiere the videos so that I could be online and you guys can be online, and you can tell me what you think about the video right there and then, and we can chat about it. I'll be so excited. So I will let you know when I'm starting that also. So I've got a few plans for the new year, and yeah, just, you know, just thank you so much for hanging with me, guys. I really appreciate it. And for those of you who've actually buying my patterns, I'm so appreciative. You don't know, whenever I sell a pattern, like, Carl, guys, someone bought my pattern. It's so exciting because I've given them away for years, and a lot of you have downloaded the free ones, so they're available to buy now. I mean, when I say a lot of you have downloaded them, a lot of you have downloaded them. If you didn't get the chance to take part in them when they were free, I don't know what to say. Sorry, but they're not expensive, to be honest. I think it's about $7 or something like that, so they're not pricey at all. But a lot of you have downloaded the free ones because the computer obviously tells me how many downloads there is. But yeah, but it's really nice when you download, and it's really nice that you actually value my information so much that you're happy to pay for it. So that's a thumbs up to you, definitely. So thank you once again. Let me know what you think about the quilt. Love hearing your feedback. Any questions or comments, keep them positive, no negativity. You know, it's not nice to receive negative ones. It's you know, it's not nice. So if you got anything negative to say, just don't say it. My mom always said, if you've got nothing positive to say, zip your lips. All right, so Okay guys, so love you lots. See you in the next one, and happy quilting. Hi guys, so today we're going to make a really beautiful quilt, and I know you're going to love it. So let's get started. So you need a layer cake, or you can use 10-inch squares, what I have done is pull from that 10-inch square. So I have taken one of each and I have stacked them here. Okay, now it's very important that you shimmy them, to use a technical term, shimmy them so that they're all nicely to the edge of each and they're lined up properly. I mean, if it's not perfect, don't stress about it. Just to move this up a bit so it's actually in the camera shot there. Okay, now what we're going to do now is, probably the best thing to do is move this, and I still have the room. There you go. Right, so most important I want you to take heed of is do not allow any of the 10-inch squares to be faced down. So all of the squares must be facing right side up. That's very important, okay? Because if it's facing right side down, you will not be able to use that particular cut of fabric, and you more or less will waste your fabric, okay? Unless you make that block on its own. And now once you understand the block, then you will know what I'm referring to. So you're going to need a very sharp rotary cutter. I've actually changed the blade on this one. You're going to need your squaring up ruler. You're going to need a smaller ruler or template as such to cut any extras of white fabric as well. Okay, strips of fabric that we're going to use. We're also going to press in between, so I have my pressing mat here as well as my little iron to get myself sorted out. Okay, so what I am going to do now is start to cut, and I'm going to use my long ruler for this one. You can use any ruler as long as it extends beyond the squares. All right, I'm going to switch my light off because I can see it from there. That's better. Okay, so what you need to do is to line it up, and there will be a pattern, so the pattern will tell you exactly where you need to line up and cut. We're going to do 2 cuts all together, and hence the reason why you need a sharp blade, because you're going through layers of fabric here. Okay, now once you've done that, we're going to swap one around, or you can swap 2 around. It doesn't really matter as long as you are happy with whatever colors. At the end of the day, it's all going to be mixed up, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so what we're going to do now is take our strip, and we are going to sew it front sides together on the first one. I'll use a shorter one. So front sides together all the way down using a 1/4 inch seam. So I'm going to go. All right, so once I've sewn it to the top, and I'm going to flip it over so that you can see what I actually did. All right, so I did not edge to edge the white strip with my fabric here for my 10-inch squares. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do now, I'm going to press along here and open back that seam. Now you can finger press, or you can use the iron, which I have been using because I have always honestly started making the blocks already. So I'm just going to bring this over, and now you could put it, i.e. where it falls on the white. It doesn't really matter at this point, you're not really going to see that, but if it bothers you, you can fold it to the dark side. All right, so I have been folding it to the dark side to start with. Right, so as you can see, my stack is still there, and I have mixed them around, which once you move one, obviously it is going to be used. Now, for example, if this happens, all you need to do is just swap one around, so that eliminates that issue. All right. Now, what I'm going to do next is to take this one here, and I'm going to put it front sides together there on that strip. Let me move these out of the way. Right, on that strip. Now what I don't want you to do is to get caught up in worrying whether or not you meet this point here. Now you can eyeball it, and to be honest, that is what I've been doing. Why? Because you are going to trim the block, and you will have extra to trim the block up properly. Okay, now I am not saying to put it front sides together about an inch away down from the top, because then that's really not going to solve the problem. That's going to create more problem for yourself. I'm just going to zoom in so you can see what I'm referring to here. Okay, so what I want you to do is to simply, I'm just going to iron the top there because it's a little bit curled. I want that to be nice and flat. Right, lovely. So what I tend to do is to put it together like so, straighten that up. And I know I can see visually where it actually falls. So what I'm going to do is just flip it over and, you know, give myself a mental memory and mental eyeball as to where it actually falls. Okay, so I'm going to zoom back out. Okay, and then I'm just going to start from that point. I'm going to start on the white strip itself and sew all the way down. What I want you to be mindful of is that because we have now cut in between those layers, that layer cake there, what's happening now is that we have created a bias here. All right, do not stretch the fabric. Don't put any stress on the fabric. Don't put it at all. Okay, what happens is that once you have sewn the 10-inch square to the strip, it now strengthens that again. Okay, so when you go to the machine and you lay it down, you just simply allow the feed dogs to do the work, and you sew a 1/4-inch seam all the way down. All right, so I've sewn it back together now, and what I am going to do is to now iron it like so, so that the seams come together. All right, so I'm going to iron, or I should say I'm going to just press the seams inward, and I'm going to make sure that there's no folds on the front there. Now when you do this, make sure you pull it apart, just very gently, don't tug on it, just put it apart so that you don't get that fold. All right, okay, so I'm going to put that aside. So I'm going to make another one. Now what I have been doing is completing the whole stack, and then I go back and do the second part of making the block. So I'm going to make another one so that I have two, so that I can show you what the pattern actually finishes as. All right, keep moving this so that I can make sure that you're in the shot. Right, so I'm going to do the same thing here now with another piece of strip, and I'm going to line it up, and I'm just going to do front sides together just as I've done before, and then I'm going to do the other one, then I'll come back. All right guys, so now that I have sewn in my white strip, what you need to do is line it up yet again, all of them. Now you can do it in groups of 2s or 3s or 1s, entirely down to you, whatever you feel comfortable cutting with. All right, or however amount much makes you feel secure. But you need to line it up. So I'm just going to make sure that it's lined up properly. Now what I want to let you know is that even though it is uneven, I want to see if I can just find one that's a lot more clearer. Let's have a look at, let me see, this one here, perfect. So with this one here, where you can clearly see that the pink and the white does not equate straight across, that is not a problem, okay, because you're going to have lots of wiggle room to cut it down to the size that we need it to be. All right, so line it up yet again, and you can do 2 as I said. So I'm going to do 2 at the same time. So I'm going to line them up. Usually I do all 4, sorry, I think it's 5 here. Usually I do all 5, and I usually just take my time and stack them. Make sure they're lined up properly, edge to edge, like so. I'll keep going. Again, make sure everything's lined up properly, and I'll just smoosh it out. And the last one. At this stage, if you want to move about, so for example, if you want to put, like I've got the two blacks together, if you want to move them about, this is a stage to do it. It's a little bit easier before you actually cut the fabric. So at this stage is best to move them. And put that one on top there also. Now, so I'm going to turn it. Okay. Now, once I turn it, I'm just going to make sure that if it came out of sync, and I'm going to line it up again on the grid line on the mat, and I'm going to do another cut yet again. All right, and again, the cut measurements, because this is a second cut and it's going to be a different measurement from the first one. Okay, so you line it up, even though it may look the same, it is definitely not. All right, and then you line it up and you simply cut yet again. And again, the reason why you need a sharp, okay, you pull apart. Okay, so when you do the middle there where all that seams come together, you need to make sure you go right through and get a nice straight cut. And we're going to do the same. So we're going to pop one down to the bottom, and now we're going to add another strip. Got another shorter piece here, right in the middle, front sides together, the same thing like we've done. Now, as I've laid it on there, don't sew it as short as that, okay? Give yourself enough room so that you can add the extra piece on. Okay, so I'm going to do that again, front sides together. I'm going to sew them down, and then I'll come back and show you what to do. Well, in essence, we're almost done with the block, but let me sew these down and I'll return. When you go to the sewing machine, just take both stacks with you alongside your strips as well, and you can sit there and literally just sew them, then go back to the ironing station and then iron. Okay, I have been using my sort of smaller ruler here to just cut. You can use the scissors, but sometimes depending on where I am, if I can cut it here, i.e. if I'm at the ironing mat, then I'll just cut it on the board. If I'm at the sewing machine, I just use the scissors. But give yourself some room so that you have enough to actually cut it at the bottom. So don't cut them short, okay? Give yourself a little bit of room there. And same for the top as well. So extend the strip at the top so you have enough room to sew it on. Okay, right, so I'm going to take my stack and sit down at the sewing machine and sew them all together. All right, so all of the blocks now have been made, well, at least the ones I've been demonstrating with you. Okay, so these are them. Okay, so this is what the blocks look like. Now, what I want you to take heed of is the fact that not all of them is going to come out perfect. I mean, these are all right. To be honest, you can see where the lines, and I'm going to zoom in again so that you can see what I'm referring to. So you can see here where the line just mirror on the other side and it comes over straight. If it's slightly off, I don't want you to worry about that. I'm looking for one to see if I can find any that's like, they all seem to have come out pretty good, so I'm not really worried about it. But if you have one that's slightly off, please don't stress about it. It is not going to show once the whole quilt is completed. Now, what we're going to do is square this up back to the 10-inch. I'm just going to zoom back out. Right, so we're going to take one and we're going to work with it. Now, if you want to trim all these little extras off, you can, but ideally you don't really need to right now because we're going to trim it up. So I'm using my squaring up ruler and I'm going to put it right in the middle. Now, don't try to line up your diagonal line in the middle. It's pointless because at this point, this quilt this block here comes up to 11. All right, so we wanted to go back to 10. So we're just going to line it up on a grid line there, make sure you get a nice straight cut. And what I'm doing literally is just getting my 10-inch right in the middle of the square. So I'm just lining it up just to make sure. Now remember, I have a long and short area at the bottom down there, so I'm using the shorter edge of the block here to line up. Okay, as long as the block, or as long as that 10-inch that you're going to cut is within the confinements of the actual block. All right, so I think mine is sitting pretty good there. So all I'm going to do now is trim off the extra. On some sides you will get more, some you'll get less. It doesn't really matter as long as you end up with a 10-inch. So check and double check before you actually cut. Hold that ruler, that square ruler, nice and firm in the middle, and again budge your blade right up to the corner and do your first cut. And I always swipe away and then cut at the top. What I tend to do is literally turn, hold that point and turn. Okay, and then I'm going to line it up using my 10-inch mark on my ruler. I'm going to put it right down there and at the bottom there, because I know these cuts now are fresh and clean and sharp. So once that is done, what we're going to do now is then just trim off the extra, and you've got your perfectly 10-inch square yet again. Again, hold that really nice and firm. You don't want it moving on you. First cut, swipe away. I always come back so I get the edges and cut. Okay, so this is your block. All right, so they come in, obviously each block will have a piece of each of the color. All right, and they would look differently once we actually laid it out. Now, so that's what we're playing with. So I'm going to continue with making up all of the balance of the blocks, and then we will lay it all out. All right, so again, remember to press them first before you square it up. That's very important. And I just wanted to make sure that you note to allow the seams to lay lovely and flat at the back. So I've ironed them nicely. Now, ideally, because of the seam line or because of the stitch line, it will force the second joining of the strip to allow all of the seams to go inwards. So just press it as such. However, it doesn't really show up at the back here, at the front I should say. It is okay, and once that is on the batting, you shouldn't really have a problem. So continue to square up, and then we will take it from there to lay it all out. Alright guys, this is a simple layer that I've put together. I've just laid all the blocks on the floor, and I've just created a formation using some of the colors to form like a spinning flower. But you can play around and see what you get with it, but I like this one. Have fun with it. Alright guys, so now that I've already sewn all of the blocks together and they're ready, I've already laid them out as I've shown you, and now I'm going to sew them together. Now the important thing here is to pick them up exactly as the way you expect to sew them together. Alright, otherwise your layout or your orientation would have been pointless. So just pick them up. So what I have done, this is my top, and obviously the last one is my bottom. So I'm going to pull this out and I'm going to fold it front sides together, so then I know I'm not getting confused. Okay, so that is simply what I'm going to do, and I'm going to sew the whole row together. Now I'm going to compile this quilt as you go as rows, as I've usually done with all of my quilt as you goes. So I'm going to sew one row, the second row, and then sew both those rows together. But I'll take you to the next stage once I have shown you how to do this. I'm not going to sew the whole thing on the camera, but just to give you an idea of how you need to actually sew it together. All right, so again, this is my second block, this is my first. I've moved my first over and I'm taking my second block and I'm flipping it front sides together, and I'm simply just going to do a 1/4 inch seam, and that is it. Now, because I'm right-handed, I'm going to have to turn it upside down, but because I know it needs to be turned back this way, yeah, I'm not going to confuse myself because I've been doing it for the whole quilt top. All right, but as long as you get your rhythm in your head, whatever works for you, then that's fine. Once you have made the whole row, you can then obviously line it up with the other row so that you know you've got your pattern back. Okay, so I'm just going to sew it all together. It doesn't take long. It really does come together very quickly, so I don't expect that you should have any issues really. There is no matching seams other than when you put both rows together and then you have to join that seam line. So that is it, so put it back. All right, so what I'm going to do now is continue with this and then we're done. So again, front sides together. All right, now, so both have been joined together. I'm going to give it a good press at the back and the front, making sure that everything is laid nicely, and I'm going to put it onto the batting and show you about the allowance for the borders for the top and bottom and size borders. All right, so let's move on to that stage now. All right guys, so for the next stage now, we're going to need some batting. You're going to need a pen or a marking tool. I'm just using an ordinary pen, and you're going to be using your ruler. Okay, now I have cut my batting slightly bigger than my quilt top, and the quilt top I'm referring to here is the 2 rows that I've actually stitched together. Again, reminder that we are making this quilt as you go in rows, so hence the reason I would refer to each of it as the quilt top. All right, so it's slightly bigger, but what you need to be mindful of, or what you need to take into consideration, is the fact that how much space you need to give yourself for your borders. Now I've put 2 markings here, and all I've simply done is measured whatever width I want from the edge of this border here, and another measurement from that. So I've made the same measurement, and all I'm going to do simply is join them together to make like an L. Okay, and keeping that line nice and straight. Now what you can do again is to put that same measurement on there, and just to make sure that you are on mark really, so that you're not going lower or higher. Okay, and you just join that all the way down the whole of the batting. So you just continue that again, and the measurement here is not important in the sense that this is self-governed. So if you want to give yourself a very wide border, you can. If you want to give yourself border, you have to include 2 borders, then that's fine also. Hence the reason why I haven't mentioned what size border I'm using. So you're going to do that for the top. That's just my iron, and side, and the other side all the way down here. So you're going to do the same again. Just continue drawing that line, making sure that it is even from the edge of where you say you want to be, and just continue. Okay, now and then I'm going to do the same thing on this side, measure where I need to stop for that border to start on this side here again, and continue down. Okay, now so that is it. So you can see the border space aligned there already. Now I'm going to use 2 borders, hence the reason why it's so wide. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is on this side of my batting is the rough side, this is the smooth side. Now I usually put the rough side first. It doesn't really matter, only because I don't have to worry about it shifting when I move, because it tends to grip to it. Now again, because I have already identified which is top and bottom, so then I know with my paper that if I, you know, just excuse me, twist it around, I know that the area with the number is my first row and it goes on the right or the left, however I've numbered it. Okay, so the importance of having this marked line here now is so that I know where my quilt stops, my quilt top starts. All right, bit of a tongue tie there, where my quilt top starts, and I'm simply just going to pin. So I'm just going to pin right there at that point there, and I'm going to just move this up so that you have a clear picture, making sure it is nice and straight. Now I am not really bothered if the end here is not cut properly or it's a little bit wobbly, as long as I got that consistent measurement on the side, because it will be trimmed at the end of the process. Okay, so again, and what you can do is smoothen this out, again making sure, and move that out of the way, making sure that you keep it lined up. Notice that, you know, you see it's sliding down, so because I've put the line there, I know automatically it needs to be on that line, and then everything is straightened out. Okay, so that is it simply. Now let's go to the bottom here. Now there's lots of space here, okay, at the bottom. We don't want that, so what we are going to do is to trim it off, probably about 1/4 of an inch away. Okay, we are going to trim the batting off 1/4 of an inch, or you can trim the batting literally right up to the edge of the quilt top. Now I don't like to do that, only because sometimes when you are quilting it shifts, so just to give myself a little bit of leeway, I just give myself probably 1/2 inch or so at the bottom there. But it shouldn't really move, and I'll tell you why it moves sometimes, because I may not always pin it down, or I may not always baste it down. If I don't have any basting spray with me, I will definitely use the bumpy side and just keep smoothing out like so, just to make sure that it sticks down properly. Okay, but I do have basting spray, so I will spray it in a minute. So I'm going to trim it all off here, and then that's the end of that, because the reason why I'm trimming is so that I can join the other second row. So this is my row 1, so I can join my second row. Okay, so you're going to do this for the top and bottom only. Okay, why? Because obviously this is the top where we will have our top border, and at the bottom you will have your bottom border. You also need to ensure you have the sides inclusive also for rows 2 and 3. So rows 1 will have your top border inclusive of your batting, and your row 4 would also have the same of the bottom border inclusive of the batting as well as the side, whereas rows 3 and 4, because they are in the middle, they're only going to have the side border included. So let me just show you what that looks like. Let me fold this over so it doesn't confuse you. So this is row 3. So you can see row 3 is exactly as it is, as I said. All right, so it is just the size of the actual quilt top in this case, with the border allowance there and the border allowance there. All right, so I hope that makes sense to you. So what I'm going to do now is to add the backing. This one has already been glue based, and just add the backing onto this the same size. So the backing is going to be added on for the same size for all of the rows. So the backing is going to include the size for the top, which is the borders as well, the side borders and top borders and bottom borders, and the rows 3 and 4 is going to include the size again for the borders on the sides. So the same thing, so exactly what the batting is what the backing fabric is going to be. All right guys, so I'm going to move on to that stage now, and I'm going to quilt this first, all of them, and then I'll come back and show you how to join them. so let's move on to the next stages. So all of the panels have now been quilted, and I wanted to show you how you need to join them. Now what you need to do, I'm working here with panels 3 and 4. I've already joined 2 and 1, so I'm working with 3 and 4 here. All right, so what I have done in preparation to get it joined, I'm going to explain to you. So for panel 4, I have trimmed back everything to the line of the quilt block. All right, so wherever that quilt block actually stops is where I've trimmed everything off. And what I mean by that, I've trimmed off any extra batting and backing. So I've trimmed in line with the actual quilt top. Okay, now for panel number 3, because I am joining 3 to 4, I have already trimmed away any extra batting on this one, and I have left the backing fabric on. So I've left the backing fabric on, and I've also trimmed it to at least 1 inch in width. All right, and so that is because I want to be able to fold it over to hide the raw edge, like so. All right, so what I'm going to do now is to join 3 to 4, and I'm going to lay front sides together. Now in preparation for 2 to be joined to 3, 2 is already like this, and I have already trimmed away the extra that needs to be trimmed, so that panel 3 at the top is already ready to go. All right, so meaning I have trimmed off the extra backing and batting in line with the quilt top, okay, to be joined to 2. I hope that makes sense. So now that I am ready and I've trimmed everything off, I am going to lay front sides together, and I'm going to line up the start of the block here and the start of the block on 4. So this is 3 in my hand, and this is 4 on the table. So I'm just going to line them up. As it is right now, it is not. So I'm going to put them front sides together and line it up properly. Okay, now this stage is important. Make sure you line it up, because obviously if you don't do this accurately, what you would find is that it will be offset, and you may possibly have to trim everything off here, and it's all messed up. So it's very important that you do this properly. Now you shouldn't really have a problem in terms of lining it up. It should line up easily. Okay, so again, I'm just making sure it's literally front sides together. Okay, so front sides together, and I'm going to use a pin and pin the whole thing together. All right, so I'm going to pin at the start of that first, okay, where the first meets there, and I'm just going to continue along everything. Now what I need you to do is to double check that every seam line has been met. So the seam line here on 4 and the seam line here on 3. The seam line obviously is the indication of the joining of the blocks. So again, as long as those are laying front sides together, then you are literally lining it up as if you would normally a quilt top, and I'm making sure that those edges meet. That is very important. We do not want it to be shifting. Okay, now let me explain to you what I mean by shifting. Now some people say I explain too much and I talk too much, but I do this so that everyone can understand what I'm saying. Okay, so for those of you who think I'm talking too much, tough. I don't know what else to say. There's nothing else I can do other than explain it properly. So if it is not lined up properly, like for example like this, okay, what you will find is that when you put it together, you are going to miss one of them. So you will find that you may stitch possibly one down, but the raw edge of the other will be showing. So it's very important that you line it up. I'm only telling you this because I have done it, and I know where the pitfalls are when making the quilt. Okay, I've done it 100 times, so I know. So ensure that it's literally kissing each other, front sides together. Okay, and each point is being lined up. Now once you've done that, you just simply need now to go on your sewing machine and sew it. Okay, now when you do go on the sewing machine, you now need to change to your walking foot. Why? Because it will move a lot more easily as there's lots of bulk underneath the presser foot. Okay, if you use your 1/4 inch, you can, however, it will just be a little bit difficult for you. But using your walking foot is easier. Now, if you've got a utility stitch feet, that will be perfect too, as long as it's not your 1/4 inch. However, you still need to apply a 1/4 inch when you do this, all right? So I'm just going to line anything up. Once I have done that, all I'm simply going to do is then put it on the other side, this side up. Let me turn it around. This side up so that I can literally see this area here. What I don't want is it tucked under and I accidentally stitch over it and this is stitched out. Okay, so when you sew, make sure that the side that you're going to use, or the panel that you're going to use to cover, you can use any panel to do the covering or the joining or to hide the seam. Any panels, there's no right or wrong way. Whichever one you want to use to do the joining or the covering, that's fine. Okay, but the important thing here is to line it up, make sure it's actually sitting upright upside, wrong side up, so you can see it, and you will stitch your 1/4 inch along there. Okay, and that's it basically. So once you've done that, you must then press it open. Okay, you press it up. I'm not going to show you all of this, I'm explaining so that you know. Okay, all of the details is going to be in the pattern. All right, so you press it and then you will then literally do a fold. So you'll do one fold and then you'll do the other fold to actually stitch it down, okay, to hide that raw edge. And when you are going to do this second stage, then you are literally opening up, you are literally going to open up the quilt and sew it flat. I hope that makes sense. All right, so when you do that, you will be by this stage opening up the quilt top like so. So the quilt top will be like this under your sewing machine, and you will just literally be folding over and hiding the raw edge, and you'll be doing that stitch there. All right, so I'm going to continue doing this, and then I'm going to add my borders, and I will then show you the completed quilt. Alrighty then guys, so this quilt is completed. This quilt measures 60 across by 82 in length. And I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Now, what I wanted to point out to you is the patterns on the quilt. Now, if you can look carefully, my intention when I made this quilt was to show sort of a spinning block. And so I achieved that in that one there. So some of them, when you do yours, you will probably get a mixture of colors. You can get just one color as well. But when you stand back, you don't necessarily see that unless your eyes is looking for it. It looks very abstract, okay? One of my favorite fabric is the borders. Absolutely love the borders. The quilting patterns I use all over the quilt was just a flower meander. And I'll just go in closely so you can make it out, hopefully. So that was all over. Under borders, as you can see, I just did wishbones. But throughout, everything else was just the meandering flowers. And I really loved it. And I think it played a really good part. Using that quilting technique was really beautiful. Loved it. It was easy to do. Didn't have any stress quilting at all. So with those sort of spinning flowers you can see there, I just love it. This fabric is absolutely beautiful. All of the fabrics stand out, but they're not fighting with each other. Really, really lovely. The quilt, I think I already told you that it measures 60 by 82, so it's a rectangular in size. It's very easy to compile. It doesn't take long at all. At the top of the borders, I did something completely different. Now, normally when you do your borders, you would have a blunt border. So what I mean by that is that you wouldn't have this here. So this fabric will go all the way up. That is considered a blunt border. Well, in this case, I decided to give it a T-junction. And so I just like the way how that worked out. It was just something to play around with. But I really love it. And this is what I was referring to, that when you do make your pattern, you may not necessarily get that. Okay, obviously you will most likely use different fabrics. Now, if you wanted to use the fabrics that I have, there is a kit available to make this quilt. So you'll be able to buy the exact fabrics, so you can make it just like this. I absolutely love the border fabric. It's just so pretty. The binding, I use a very striking blue, which is absolutely lovely, and it really frames the quilt really beautifully. Let me show you the back. Absolutely love that. Now, isn't that so beautiful? Just brings summer into your room. And again, guys, it's a quilt as you go. You will not be able to tell by looking at it unless I go really close and show you those seam lines. And you can see one there. I have to point it out for you. Even my eyes couldn't find it. So guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. It was really fun to make. Do check out my website if you would like to get the quilt kit, that is. You can obviously buy the quilt if you choose to as well. But absolutely gorgeous. Now, there was a bonus project, and I want to get that and show it to you right now. Alright, so you can see the bonus project. Now, it is just a really small table topper, but this was the leftover fabrics from the layer cake that I put together. And so I just used the extra blocks, in this case, to put this beautiful table topper. It is so lovely. I use a gray binding, and I just love the way it's worked out. Okay, also I did use a little bit of scrap fabric at the corner there. As you can see, it's very different from that one, which has got white dots on white, but it's really lovely. Also, this was quilted with my brother's sewing machine. I did not quilt it, the machine quilted it. So I used the quilting patterns on my brother's sewing machine. So just wanted to give you guys a little heads up, you know, that if you do have a brother, you can use it for your quilting. Isn't that beautiful? Yes, you may have to move or maneuver the quilt underneath it, because as you can see, some of it is in straight lines, and then some of it I moved it about so that I can get a different pattern. But overall, it looks absolutely beautiful. On the back, I just use a piece backing just to put it together. And it's a bonus project that you can make from the rest of your pieces. You have 42 blocks in your quilt. So again, isn't this quilt beautiful? Just absolutely gorgeous. I do love all these little flowers, these spinning flowers that really came about from making the quilt. Hence the reason why I use that flower meander. Some of them are different ones with different prints together. Just love it. Absolutely gorgeous. It looks really nice on the bed. I did lay it out to see what it would look like, and it has really complemented. Beautiful quilt, guys. You won't be disappointed. So that being said, do like and subscribe, hit that notification bell, and if you're new here, please consider subscribing and do let me know what you think of the quilt. Share the video around, and I look forward to hearing from you. Bye guys, happy quilting, and I'll see you in the next one.